This is the only way to get your college football week started off on the good foot. It's the Kickoff, presented by Ram Trucks, a Skubie and Scaled edition for you here this week leading up into week 6. We got plenty coming up for you. Matt Browne joins the program, so does Heather Dinich. But first, we have maximized this massive production budget to take advantage of what we have in store. The Throne of Shame, as we recap the best that was on week 5.
Check it out, ladies and gentlemen.
This is your Throne of Shame, and it is appropriately crappy. I was about to use a cuss word there. I avoided it. Anyways, the first candidate, my Georgia Dogs. And I'm going to take a seat here.
His Georgia Dogs. All right.
Yeah, 100%. Because I refuse to actually take this as a Throne of Shame, to be quite honest.
Okay.
I'm a cynic, so I knew what was perfectly capable of this squad. But what I was most upset about was how it all unfolded. First half, you get down 14-0 before you even get a chance to breathe. They are converting, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 9 of 11 third downs in the first half. Defense looked out of sorts, issues with tackling, issues with alignment, issues with penalties, and then the ultimate dagger by game's end was that a 6'9", 360-pound offensive tackle caught a screen pass. Ryan Grubb was in prime disrespect mode. Run game.
Get out the way!
That's the one. That's the heartbreaker, right? So yes, run game was fantastic. 227 yards by game's end. But when you spot the Ops 14 points out the gate, you ain't gonna be able to do much with that.
No,
I'm not gonna sit here and blame Gunnar Stockton for his lack of performance. I know there was a massive drop that would have put him up, but Gunnar was there to ball without question. So all that to say, I knew how this movie ended. I knew how this game goes. And I will take this seat on the Throne of Shame, but I will not be shameful in myself. I knew this was going to happen. I just didn't say it out loud.
It was a close game, man. The season's not over. It's
not, but I'm frustrated. It's all out there. I can't do it. So
spoken like a true fan there.
That's it. I got it in me. I got to wear it like that. Next up, we have the Florida State Noles. Tell me as you take a seat on the Throne.
Taylor's not here. She's a fan of said team. But I will speak for them on the Throne of Shame. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the most wide open season that we have seen in the college football playoff era. The age of undefeated teams is gone. We're going to see teams with 1, 2, maybe even 3 losses make the playoff. Perfection is not a necessity anymore. Just look at our defending champs, Ohio State. They lost to Michigan, a team that they were better than. This just happens to be an FSU team that went on the road against a good Virginia team. They were down 14-0 in the first half. They made it 21-14 in the second half. It became a double overtime thriller, and we're still questioning if Deuce Robinson caught a touchdown or not. No, ref, if I'm a fan of the team, that's a touchdown. I say this all to point out that Florida State is a good team that should not have dropped 10 spots in the AP poll. Are you kidding me? They basically lost on the last play, and we're going to put them behind an Alabama team that they beat?
Yeah, that's the part that crushes me. Like, we're just going to throw that head-to-head result out the window.
Head-to-head doesn't matter?
Don't worry about it.
It matters. Head-to-head definitely matters. Now, understand this, okay? As everybody gets their players in the transfer portal, the field is going to be spread out even more. Yeah. Chandler Morris, a transfer from North Texas who has made several stops, by the way, had 5 touchdowns in that game. Tom Castellanos, a guy who was a transfer from Boston College, the starter for Florida State as a quarterback.
Transfer from UCF to begin with. That's neither here nor there. Like, yes.
Transfer players are evening out the college football plane, and we are going to see more players and more teams, get clipped this season. A loss is a loss. Florida State's a good team.
No doubt. No doubt.
They'll be all right.
No doubt.
The same way Georgia will be all right.
I appreciate that soft sentiment on the back end there. But we got one more team to put on the Throne of Shame. I don't think either one of us has to take the seat. We can just lay the helmet right there, boss. Penn State. Hey, let the big game James chorus sing, because it is once again a moment in which James Franklin and them find a way to lose a game that they, in all likelihood, should have won, right? Like, that's point blank period. And I'm not even going to sit here and blame James Franklin for some end of game malfeasance as far as managing goes. But we all knew what Drew Allen, I maybe not say we all knew, but there were those of us who were kind of wondering, what exactly is all the hype around Drew Allen?
Facts.
And he showed exactly why there should not necessarily be the hype train behind him. Only one pass for over 20 yards. It was that 35-yard touchdown. It was too little, too late. And it tells the story of this Penn State program that cannot get anything going on offense, but it's stellar defensively. I will not take that away from them.
Here's the truth about Penn State. This is supposed to be the best team.
No doubt.
They had a lot of returning players, guys that could have gone to the NFL but decided to come back to pursue a championship. They went with the same formula that Michigan had when they won a championship, that Ohio State had when they won a championship, of bringing these guys back, paying them and taking care of them. Got into the transfer portal, got some wide receivers, because Tyler Warren can't save you anymore. And somehow, some way, this is still the same Penn State football team that we have seen in recent years. I don't think it's the players anymore. It's the systems. Andy Kotelnicki, come on, bro. You got to be able to generate some type of explosive plays. You just addressed that, Trev.
Yep.
And they've got to be able to get their wide receivers involved. Drew Aller is a guy that they say is a first-round quarterback, but now in the last two biggest games that they've played, he's thrown the game-ending interception.
That's it.
This defense, lights out.
No question.
It was a 3-3 ball game at halftime, and they were getting outgained by 120 yards.
Right.
That's thanks to the defense.
I think you cannot knock it all what they've been able to do defensively, but when is it going to turn offensively? And that's not a major indictment on this season. The season is not lost. To the point that you made with both Georgia and Florida, it's one loss, right? Yeah. There is bouncing back, especially with the schedule that may be more forgiving than others, but that also means that you don't necessarily have the same amount of opportunities to make yourself as nationally acclaimed as, say, other teams with a tougher schedule down the line. So Penn State, you have some work to do. You have to make this schedule look like nothing by the end of this year's season, but it's not going to be as easy as just winning all of them, because there is Ohio State and Indiana waiting on you.
Yeah, 4-21 against top 10 opponents for Big Game James, and the social media world was just reacting. Check out what they had to say. Drew Aller and James Franklin, where they play a team that has an NIL program, because they just seem to struggle against the good teams. And mind you, they have Ohio State and Indiana left on their schedule. They better at least split those games. But if they lose both, Trev, they're in big trouble, and it might be a top 10 game again for both of those teams.
These tweets is wild, disrespectful. I do appreciate this one here. Anytime this man, James Franklin, gives it up, you can guarantee to see key on that. But I will say, right, like, there's no question that entering this week, there were more questions than we had answers surrounding Penn State. Now that we know what their identity is, it's not going to be anything stellar offensively.
Same identity.
Right. Same old song.
Just look at tape from like 3-4 years ago. It's the same, right. It's the same thing.
But can you lean into that if you're the Nittany Lions and find a way to make this a run that is actually built around what exactly you're good at?
All right, let's see just how far down some of the top-ranked teams went in the latest CFP projections from Heather Dinich. Florida State drops to number 7, Georgia, number 9, trailing Alabama, Miami holding the number 1 spot. And then look at Oklahoma climbing all the way up, Trev. You gotta love that. Penn State dropping to number 12. A little bit of a shakeup in the top 12. So it's only right we bring in ESPN senior writer Heather Dinich joining us now. And Heather, Trev and I just put some teams on the throne of shame for their performance this past weekend. So let's start with Florida State. Give me the CFP implications for that team after their loss to Virginia.
Well, they really need to avoid a loss to Miami on Saturday, because if that were to happen, that's really the last opportunity on their schedule right now to impress the committee against a ranked opponent. And if they don't beat Miami, guys, and they run the table and they finish 10-2 with losses to Miami and Virginia, I don't know that that's going to be good enough to get them into the college football playoff as an at-large bid. Here's why. Penn State could be 10-2. Notre Dame could be 10-2. There could be a lot of really good 10-2 teams out there for the selection committee to consider. And if you're looking at Florida State's schedule, wins against Clemson and Florida, does that sound familiar? LSU would have the same resume, basically, right? So there's just some concern there if they can't get it done against the Canes.
So I imagine, too, like conference championship comes into play. If you can find your way backdooring into an ACC championship and that's your one bid in, that's what Florida State's looking at if they lose to Miami. But that's a big if. We will see how that goes. Now, the other intra-conference matchup between Bama and Georgia wound up feeling like a lot heavier than I think anybody anticipated going in as far as college football playoff implications go. So with regards to the Dogs, with regards to Bama, how do either of those teams' playoff projections get affected by that result?
Well, let's start with a winner because Bama going on the road and beating Georgia pushed them back into my CFP projection on Saturday night. And they're in a safe spot. They're at number 8. I mean, they're not hanging around at 11 or 12. That's a solid spot. But I have them behind Florida State because in that selection committee meeting room, head-to-head results still matter. I think the Tide has got to be really careful against Vandy on Saturday. That is a really good team with Diego Pavia. The question is Vanderbilt ready to go from role of spoiler to role of contender? We're going to find out. And then when you flip over to Georgia, I think that this is a team that still can certainly get into the college football playoff. Obviously, one loss isn't doomsday, but they've got to be able to avoid maybe one or two more because you're going to have multiple teams in the SEC with multiple losses. But when you look at Georgia's schedule there, that regular season finale against the Yellow Jackets is going to be tough again. Remember, 8 overtimes last year, guys, to Georgia Tech. And this is a team, Georgia Tech, that could be playing for the ACC title this year.
All right, so when we look at the ACC, going back towards that, you have Miami as the #1 team in the country ahead of Ohio State. Now, Ohio State did play a tough Washington team, and I think people are going to find out that Washington is better than expected. So how far is the gap for you between Miami and Ohio State at 1 and 2?
I'll tell you what a selection committee chair would tell you. It's razor thin. The margins are razor thin between those two teams.
Can you get warmed
really
up?
Is. I mean, when you look at the overall body of work, though, for Miami and a win against South Florida, that's a good team, too. But the win against Notre Dame, to me, is what pushes them over the edge of Ohio State. Because, yeah, I agree with you 100%. You go on the road, you beat Washington, assert yourself in the second half, that's a big deal. But Miami's overall resume collectively, I think right now, trumps Ohio State by a hair. But look, the Canes lose to Florida State. This changes very quickly.
Yeah, these teams seem to be so interchangeable towards the top, and especially given the performance by Oregon this past Saturday at Penn State. When you look at what they were able to do, we talked about the big game James narrative on that throwing to shame a little bit, but I wonder just the drastic uptick in Oregon stock and the pretty far drop for Penn State. How does that then move ahead in this season with regards to either one of them being able to make a case for the college football playoff?
So when you look at Penn State, they sank like a rock to number 12 in my projection because without the win against Oregon, you've got no Power 4 wins. Nevada, FIU, and FCS Villanova. That's not a playoff resume. So they're on the bubble right now at number 12, and if the playoff were today, they would be out because you've got to make room for 5 conference champions, and Memphis would bump them out, right? So would the Big 12 champion Texas Tech today. That means Penn State probably really needs to win at Ohio State. Because if they don't, look at that schedule. Their best win is going to be against Indiana if they beat the Hoosiers. Again, I go back to that 10-2 record that I mentioned before, right? Is a 10-2 Penn State a lock? I don't know. Banking on that Indiana win.
Yeah, it is so tough to tell, and I can't wait till we get to the end of the year saying, yeah, but they have a better loss. Yeah, but they have a better win. It's going to be all a part of the conversation, but Lane Kiffin did get himself a huge win for Ole Miss by knocking off fifth-ranked. They get to fifth-ranked in the country after beating LSU. So is it as simple as Ole Miss playing their way in or LSU playing their way out?
Ooh, I'll give you the journalist answer. The truth lies somewhere in between there. How about that? Look, Ole Miss is really good, okay? Ole Miss is probably the team I trust most. I was at this game, and Trinidad Chambliss, their D2 quarterback from Ferris State, was on the money, and he outplayed Garrett Nussmeier, a projected first-round draft pick who didn't look like a first-round draft pick coming into that game. LSU had 53 yards maybe rushing on the ground. So Ole Miss to me is a team that has a manageable schedule moving forward. That was one of their toughest games. It's certainly not going to be easy to win at Georgia. We'll see where John Mateer is. If he's back, probably not against Oklahoma. But, I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule, I see a lot of W's there, guys. So Ole Miss to me is in a great spot, and LSU, we shouldn't even be talking about the college football playoff with LSU until they start playing like a college football playoff team. The defense gave up too many big plays and the offense didn't create enough. Yeah,
once Lane Kiffin's dog is tweeting your head coach, it's problems. It's problems. It's not a good look for anybody.
He knows how to create content. Lane Kiffin is a great content creator. And listen, Heather, Trinidad Chambliss looked like a first-round draft pick. You are our first-round draft pick. We appreciate you joining us, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Time now for Unstoppable Performances presented by Ram Trucks. Let's dive a little deeper into that LSU Ole Miss game because unstoppable might be the best way to describe Trinidad Chambliss. How about 385 scrimmage yards with a touchdown against LSU, his third straight 300-yard game. Not bad for a guy who, let's remind people, is a Division II transfer backing up Ole Miss starting quarterback Austin Simmons. He's now 3-0 with no signs of slowing down. And Trev, the AP poll now has Ole Miss ranked 4th in the country. Is that right about where you think this team should be?
In the grand scheme of things, yes, from the standpoint of like that's the area. But I would have Oklahoma and Texas A&M above them based on quality of wins.
Okay.
Oklahoma beating Michigan at home and beating Auburn as well. Texas A&M going to Notre Dame and beating Auburn as well, I think are better quality wins than what Ole Miss has put forth thus far, especially because the more we learn about LSU and how they may not be as national championship contender ready as we once thought. Beyond that, eye test, Rebels definitely passes test on that front. Offensively, they are absolutely dynamic, as you mentioned, with both quarterbacks and Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss. Defensively, leave a little bit to be desired, giving up nearly 5 yards of play. And then most specifically, in this past performance against LSU, them 14 penalties, they bother me because I don't know if that's something that's sustainable if you expect to actually carry yourself into a playoff and make a run if you're going to be that undisciplined, that sort of chaotic, frankly, on a Saturday-by-Saturday basis.
I saw the ref in that game more than I did Grant Nussmeier.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
It felt like we continued to get stop after stop just because of the penalties that Ole Miss had. But great execution, and you just saw that last play, how they ended the game. Great call by Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, 100%.
Aggressive, playing to win. I think Ole Miss is really the team that can do it this year for Lane. We haven't seen one of those for him in quite some time now. Where are we putting Ole Miss, this team, when it comes down to the pettiness level? Because we have seen Lane Kiffin, I mean, literally right after the game, said that he was looking for weeks. Did we cover the over?
That's right. That's right. So he's talking to Molly McGrath, says, hey, let me go find Whit Weeks, chirp him a little bit. Then goes to Twitter 8 minutes later and posts the bulletin board material that one Brian Kelly offered throughout the week. And then his dog, 4 minutes after that, decides to tell the world that Brian Kelly and them can't run the damn ball. I cannot imagine a better version of petty than what we saw from Lane Kiffin and his pup this past weekend. It was insane.
Shout out to that tweet where the phone was smoking. He really is all about the petty, and that's what makes college football so great because there's other storylines outside of the lines.
No, man.
And Lane Kiffin is going to continue to feed those to us, including his daughter.
He is one of the best characters in college football, bar none. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Ryan McGee's documentary on him, The Many Lives of Blaine. It is exceptional. It tells a story as to how he got to be this level of villain and petty.
Yeah, I love every single minute of that and pettiness. I love petty. But all right, now let's take a look at some of the best things we saw this week in another edition of Did You Catch That? First up, the Louisville ball boy gets manhandled on the sideline. All right, so Pitt scores a touchdown, right?
Right.
And then they wanted the ball back. The Louisville ball boy starts wrestling with them.
So here's the thing. I saw a cat saying that he was getting bullied, knock it off. He was out there wanting to smoke. So eventually he obviously capitalized on the opportunity, got his, but we're not going to make him a victim. He was out here taunting people too.
You can tell he's a former football player because brother was ready for the smoke. We got that ball back and we got the dub, baby. Shout out to the Louisville ball boy. I hope he's got we can give him an NIL deal. All right, the Oregon Duck was trolling the game day crew wearing all white with the Duck noticing. He also had this clever sign. Trev, do you think it's fine to have a Saturday wedding during college football season and to wear white after Labor Day, as the Duck is saying?
Wear white whenever you want to. I'm not going to sit here and judge your fashion choices. As far as weddings go in the fall, I'm cool with that as well. Shouts to my sister-in-law for getting married on a Friday, though.
Yeah, I was at a wedding this week, too, as well. But remember the dab? Look at the dab. Are we bringing this back?
No, especially not in that form. That's terrible.
He's got to do better. It was really aggressive.
Wildly aggressive.
You got to hit the dab a little bit better than that. All right, Virginia fans rocking the goalposts here after they stormed the field. I saw this on social media. To all parents wondering what their kids are doing in college, this is what they're doing. And this dude over here looks like Travis Scott.
Just Astroworld on 10 in Charlottesville. It is always a pleasure and an honor to be joined by the one Mad Max Browne here on the Kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. And Max, let's get right into what is the Week 6 slate, beginning with Florida State and Miami. I know Florida State is coming off that loss in Charlottesville, but it is still going to be one of the best matchups between those two programs, specifically in recent history. When you boil it down to the quarterbacks, Tommy Castellanos and Carson Beck, how are we sliding this scale as far as who has the advantage?
Yeah, it's neck and neck. I love both these quarterbacks. To me, it's the two best quarterbacks in the ACC and the two best teams in the ACC. But I give Carson Beck the slight edge, and the reason is I don't think Miami is asking or needs him to be Superman for this team to play at a really high level. For Tommy Castellanos, I do feel like he needs to be that for Florida State if they're going to win these type of matchups, which is why, Trev, in past weeks we've said that if Castellanos could do that, he's going to find himself in New York as a Heisman Trophy finalist. So it's nothing against him. I think these are the two best quarterbacks in the ACC. But Carson Beck has shown me a lot this first month of the season, playing high-level competition, answering the bell after a season in which a lot of people were doubting his ability.
We hear it time and time again. Reading the news clippings, rat poison, looking ahead. Do you think Florida State, in their game against Virginia, was overlooking them to look ahead towards this Miami game?
A little bit, and I think they underestimated the significance of that game from Virginia's perspective. Everyone's talking about it through Florida State's lens. That might have been the biggest home game in the 4-year Tony Elliott tenure at Virginia. And Charlottesville was rocking. I don't think we've seen that environment like that under the Tony Elliott era. And then Chandler Morris, I think the ACC world found out that, hey, this North Texas transfer can play football at a high level, and this offense is different than where it's been the past 3 years under Tony Elliott. So I do think it snuck up on them a little bit, and maybe they were feeling themselves after starting the year off. Well, you beat Alabama, and then you start slow in that ball game, and before you know it, it's a close game, and you're not able to take advantage in overtime.
Shouts to the Cavaliers' old coordinator. He was calling the game of his life, by the way. Every button he pressed seemed to work.
He's back.
Let's shift over to the Miami perspective on this. Them making the leap to number 3 in the latest AP poll. Is that somewhere where you feel they should be? Higher, lower? How you feeling about that ranking?
I have them one notch higher. I think Oregon's been the most impressive team to me through the first month of the college football season. I feel like we knew they had all the pieces around Dante Moore, and then we figured out, oh, Dante Moore is really that dude. So I go Oregon 1, I go Miami 2, and then Ohio State 3. And a big reason why is Carson Beck. I feel like we haven't seen Julian Sayin show that he can take over a game. And I do think if Ohio State's going to win a national title, that offense needs to open up a little bit more. Carson Beck showed me a lot. I give him a slight edge over Ohio State. I know Ohio State's defending national titles, but this Miami team, the term that I've been using is they're phenomenally boring in a good way. They can run the ball. They got trenches on both sides of the ball, and that travels. Versus last year, the Miami identity was Cam Ward's got to go out there and make a bunch of plays for us, and we got to score 40 a game. That's not this Canes offense. We think it's all about flash. It's not. They can beat you in the trenches, and that's a recipe to show up every single week.
Max, let me tell you something. I was fist pumping when you gave out who your top 3 should be, because we do the college football show. Well, I do with shameless
the
plug
Royal
here
We.
with Sam Ravitch and Matt Sims, and I gave out a top 5, and I had the exact same top 3. So I'm with you all the way. Oregon has been great this year. But let's turn our attention to Vanderbilt and Alabama. Vandy entering with a 5-0 record. Much thanks to Diego Pavia. 5 touchdowns last week.
Nuts.
I mean, this guy is a baller. So what have you liked about his play so far coming off of that performance?
I think Diego Pavia might be the most underrated passer in college football. We latch on to the interview tidbits and the podcasts and his running ability and him leading as a lead blocker for his running backs. This dude can sling the rock. He's around 75% completion percentage on the year, averaging 10 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He is incredibly efficient. I don't think we give this man enough credit for what he can do from the pocket. And the difference is I don't think Vandy's necessarily sneaking up on anybody, but this is a passing attack especially. We knew Vandy could run the ball, but this is a passing attack that can beat you as well for the Commodores.
Pavia also unafraid, right? Like, not only in the interview settings, but frankly from his style of play,
Facts.
dude will gun it down there without any sort of hesitation. But you mentioned Vandy not sneaking up on anybody, and obviously they're not going to sneak up on the Crimson Tide after the loss that they took as the #1 team just last season. What will it take in order for there to be a repeat upset for the Commodores?
They definitely have to dominate the line of scrimmage from an offensive standpoint. I think Vanderbilt is built to have a lead early on in this game and then protect the lead. I don't necessarily think this offense is capable of coming from behind consistently. I know they did that a little bit early on in the season, but playing Alabama, this is not a team that I want to play right now. Alabama's playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think that week 1 loss was a wake-up call. Ty Simpson feels like he's getting noticeably better every single week. Ty Simpson's a player now. He's no game manager. He's no, hey, just don't mess it up. They're giving him the keys to the car. He's making big-time throws, and I think this is a front 7 for Alabama. That's the key. How do they match up against this Vandy running attack, this Vandy physical offensive line? It's a defensive line for Alabama that's taking shots and it's gotten criticized early on in this season. How do they respond? If they can get up early, I like Alabama's shots to shut up the Commodores.
Yeah, Bama had some struggles against the run against Georgia this past weekend. We'll see if the Doors can take advantage of that. Max, we appreciate you as always, homie. Safe travels this weekend. Look forward to chatting with you again sometime.
Thanks, fellas. See you next week.
All right, baby. So as we continue on with the kickoff presented by Ram Trucks, let's check in on the other games that we got coming up this week. Arch and Company coming off of a bye, traveling to Gainesville to take on the Gators.
I mean, the last thing I remember from Arch Man when we saw him is him standing over that Sam Houston defender in the end zone. This week, he gets to pick on a school his own size.
Okay, now that's fair. John Mateer still no-go for Oklahoma, but they will take on Kent State at home.
John Mateer was a Heisman favorite before he got hurt. Huge bull, but thankfully it's not season ending. That Brett Venables defense had a school record 10 sacks against Auburn, and they should handle Kent State pretty well.
Now, Ohio State still necessarily haven't seen the big test, but it's another sudden in-conference game against Minnesota this week.
Ohio State has learned early on already that you can't take anybody lightly after their game against Washington, ended a 22-game home win streak for Washington. So don't take Minnesota lightly. They're a well-coached team that can definitely punch you in the mouth. Ohio State, get another conference win.
No, I love what we've heard about Julian saying, just not necessarily taking over just yet, specifically with Max Browne, but maybe this is the week that it all comes together, all coalesces for that Buckeye team.
I mean, they got everything that you need. They got one of the best players in the country, Jeremiah Smith, on offense, and one of the best players on defense in Caleb Downs.
No, we will see how it goes. Either way, we are excited for it. It all gets cracking on Saturday. Go ahead and get right with the homie Skubie after all the games, by the way. This has been the Kickoff
11 p.m.
presented by Ram Trucks. Make sure you tune in, man.